Welcome to the Private Lender Podcast with your hosts from Hard Money Bankers, Jason Balin and Chris Haddon. This podcast is sponsored by hardmoneymastermind.com.
Welcome back. We're live here in the HMB studios. What's up, Chris?
What's up?
Jason
We
Balin.
are live.
Jason Balin and Chris Haddon from Hard Money Bankers with a special guest, our business partner in our New Jersey office, Ryan Walsh. What's up, Ryan?
Yo.
Ryan Walsh in the house.
Well, give everybody a little quick background about who Ryan Walsh is. Everybody knows myself. Everyone knows Chris, but not that we're hiding you up the 95 corridor or anything, but we've been lending up in that market here for a while. So, and I know you have a few of your own podcasts, which are nice. And, you know, some of our audiences, some of our listeners and our viewers overlap, but some don't, right? Mm-hmm. Some kind of live in the Maryland, Virginia, D.C. area that we're in, and some live in the Philly, Jersey, Delaware market that you're in. So give everybody just a quick background of Ryan.
Well, I mean, is the quick background here. I mean, I wasn't in real estate until, 5.5 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was a techie, right? And a nerd, computer programming, all that kind of jazz. So I made the switch over to real estate, right? Like many people do who are in this business. I had my brother who handles the Philadelphia market, and then you guys as mentors. So you brought me into the hard money world. And it's funny because it's like, yes, we do hard money, but it's really about operating a business, right? That's what we do. And, you know, I've been trained by you guys, so I do everything that you, Ian, have taught me. But my background prior to that, I've started 3 of my own businesses. I worked at NBC, the television company. If you've ever watched anything on the app, that was me. You're welcome. Me and hundreds of other people.
Nice.
But
So you ran the app for NBC for TV, for the TV broadcasting side of it?
Yeah. Developed the app and specifically the player part of it. So like when you're watching on your phone, there's a lot that goes into that. You know, how they get information about you. It's all about that kind of stuff.
That's cool. One thing I did not know.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
A little bit of the Olympics is I know all about the Super Bowl Olympics, that kind of stuff. So, but it's a very different. And then before that, I was in DC, and I only mention both those things because my perspective is I've worked on my own. I've worked with a small company of 8 people, and I've worked at NBC, which is thousands of people. So I've had the gambit of business experiences. So I'm happy to speak to all of them.
Yeah.
So NBC was the one in DC? That was the most recent?
The most recent one was in Englewood, New Jersey. So
Got
DC was when I actually worked for the FAA.
Nice.
Yeah. But yeah, when I was in New Jersey, I was working at NBC, and then I
Got it. And
joined HMB.
And Penn State graduate as well.
Penn State graduate, yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Speaking of intros, I'll jump into the quick story about Ian. You'll get a kick out of this one. Ian Walsh, our other business partner, and Ryan's older brother. So we were doing an interview of some sort years ago for the HMB podcast, or maybe it was, I forget what channel it was, right? But I was interviewing Ian. And so I jump in with a little, give us a little background, tell us your story, where you're from, stuff like that. He goes, Ian goes, yeah, no, I'm not going to talk about my childhood or my non-existent athletic career, so I'm just going to talk business, okay? And I was like, I was like, Jesus Christ. Which is the most
we're just
Ian
talking
thing
a
you could
few years
possibly
ago.
do.
We're not talking about where you were 10 years ago, or when you were 10 years old. We're just worried about
where you're from.
Give the viewers a little context about who you are.
And he's like, nope, I'm just going to go right into business. Is that okay? I was like, sure.
That sounds like Ian.
Right?
Like Ian. Yeah.
Yep. Good one.
Dude, that's funny. So let's talk a little bit about being, I don't want to call you a solopreneur because that's certainly not what you are, but the way that we have things set up is, Chris and I, obviously have Maryland, Virginia, and DC, hard money bankers, and, call it a territory, call it an office, whatever you have. Your brother Ian, for the most part, runs a lot of stuff in the Philadelphia market, Pennsylvania market. And when we wanted to expand into the New Jersey market, we felt it, Ian originally felt it says, hey, well, maybe we should try to get my brother involved. He could kind of be a good fit. And, obviously looking back, it was a humongous win-win relationship for both sides. What originally attracted you to hard money or this part of real estate investing in your eyes?
Yeah, I mean, it was back at NBC. You guys were golfing with I don't know if I've told you guys this. You guys were going to go golfing, and Ian said, "You want to join us as a fourth?" And I had to ask my boss, and my boss was like, "No."
Well, you shouldn't have asked him that exact question. You should have been like, "No, I'm just kidding."
I didn't tell him to go golfing. And my boss is awesome, so it's not a knock on them. They just
Sure.
There was projects going on, and they're like, we need you here on Friday, and that autonomy and just that he can do whatever he wants whenever he wants kind of feel. Now I've had a taste of that in my previous businesses, but there's just something that really set me off that day. It was just like I got to go do that. Now I didn't know anything about real estate coming in. I guess I shouldn't say anything because I did when I was in college about 10 years prior. I did just contractor work, right? So I swung the hammer, right? So I learned how to put things together. But nothing like flipping a house, right? It was more like somebody had a flood, they need you to come in, repair the sheetrock, that kind of thing. And when I worked with Ian a little bit on one of my other businesses, he basically said to me, he's like, you have the mentality to be a business owner. And I didn't really know what that meant at the time. And I just knew that I enjoyed working at NBC. There's definitely a lot of pros there. But the cons of not being able to go golfing on Friday was just like
a big con.
It was
a big con.
It was too much to handle.
It was too much to handle. Yeah, I had to go golfing. So it was just the right time in my life. I spoke with my girlfriend at the time, now wife. Just said, I think because I left a 6-figure job. Like it was like a comfortable story. You guys hear that all the time, right? Yeah. Taking that leap is something else. And the more I learned about hard money, the more and more it made sense for me because it's a numbers game rather than a skill or art. So if you are somebody who flips a home, you probably have an eye for like what customers are going to look for. Maybe you have a skill set. It's like swinging the hammer is a skill set. I wasn't very good. I did it, but I wasn't very good at it.
Same.
But the numbers part of it fit me really well. The more and more I got involved in it. So I think that's the answer to your question. Like, why hard money? Because it's a numbers game. Like it's I guess emotionless in a way, or you have to make it emotionless, right? But it's just
was it the business model or was it the business in general? Like, let's say Ian was wholesaling or flipping houses or investing in other types of real estate, and he was like, "Hey, listen, I'm doing real well in real estate investing right now. You should do this with me." Or, "Hey, I own Aritas and it's doing really well. Do you want to open up a franchise?" Was it the actual lending bit? Was it the hard money lending business model, or was it being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, kind of going out on your own, learning, or was it a combination of both?
It started as being an entrepreneur, and then as I got more involved, it became this business model is awesome.
Yeah. Then you started like in the actual work, the actual what it is, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's a lot. I think that's what a lot of people don't always calculate when they have, because I think a lot of people get that I want to do this, right? I want to go be a business owner, and then until you actually do it, it's there's so much stuff you can't prepare for.
Very true.
Because you do it all. You really do. Like if you let up on, let's just say, the marketing, another part of your business falls apart. And it's not like you call somebody and say, "Hey, I need your help." It's like, nope, you have to go do that.
No, you're responsible for it all, and the risk is yours. And that isn't for everyone. Like just like waking up every day being like, and more so at the beginning, obviously, like over years, like you get into your routine, things get smooth, it smoothens out. But like, especially at the beginning, you get up every day and you're like, I got to make this thing happen. And that's like a daunting feeling, and for sure, not for everyone.
I think especially after you've had a comfortable job, because in the back of my mind, I'm always like, I can go back, right? Like it's always there. And there was definitely days where you're just like,
well, most times when you start a business, you're not going to replace your income immediately, right? you'd like to, and you hopefully to do it as quick as possible, but like you're taking a leap.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, I've got a little bit of savings, or I have this in place, or maybe I don't have this in place. When we started HMB in 2007, I wasn't working at that point. I mean, I could have been working, but I left, because it was during the mortgage days, and I was working at a mortgage company. I was like, I don't want to work at another freaking mortgage company. I want to start my own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because what was the difference anyways? I mean, I was still 100%, never really got paid a salary in my entire life. No jobs ever. So like I was used to being like, hey, I got to continue, it might have technically got a W-2, but it was 1099 income, right? It was 100%. It was 100% commission. So it was the same thing. It was like, I know that if I focus on this, just like I'm focused on anything else in the world or in life or in business, be successful at it. It took longer than expected. I think it's always going to take longer than expected. I mean, how long it takes to ramp up a hard money lending portfolio, and the only thing in real estate that you can get a real quick hit on is maybe like a wholesale deal or a flip.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a challenging business model because you got to continually do that over and over and over and over to get a hit. A lot of newer real estate investors don't want to do rental properties because it's not sexy on day one. They're not getting immediate gratification. It's not sexy to get $250 a month for a property for a newer real estate investor. For a seasoned real estate investor, hell yeah, it is. $250 a month I'm happy as hell, right? And you do it over and over and over, and it turns into passive. So it's interesting because there's a lot of real estate investors that we know now that want to be hard money lenders, and we're always like, listen, if this is what you want, like it's a great business model, you should, but like there's going to be a point that you're going to sit back, you're going to look back and be like, in 6 months from now, be like, is it worth me doing this? And I'll explain to everybody why. So let's say you have like $200,000 of your own money you want to lend out, right? Even if you have no money of your own money, you want to go raise money, that's fine too. But let's just use this. If you have $200,000 of your own money that you want to go lend out, so you'll make whatever, $30,000 a year off that money, right? So you lend it out at a few points at a pretty decent rate of return. Maybe you churn, you do a few deals out of that, and you make $30,000 a year. In your first year, $30,000 is a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. With $200,000 of your own money, but let's say you're a flipper. You take that $200,000, you lever that up, you get a hard money loan, and they put up 80%, you put up 20%, and you can do 4, 5, 6, 7 loan deals. Like you can make $200,000. You can make significantly more money as a flipper or a wholesaler than a hard money lender. But the magic is the long run, right? Just like you're building a business. You're in it for the long play. So I think a lot of people don't want to be private lenders or hard money lenders, not because they don't like the passive money, but like it's hard work. Like you got to find a lot of deals. How many leads do you go through every month?
Well, every month? I guess I could break down by week. I mean, weekly it's probably about, I don't know, 300 to 400. So I guess every month
over 1,000.
Yeah,
around 1,000.
So over 1,000 to do how many loans a month? 3, 4?
Right. Yeah.
Like it's a lot of business. It's a full-time gig.
And it's not like I have somebody handling the marketing and somebody handling the phone calls. Like,
yeah,
you're doing it all.
Yeah, we'll talk about our setup here kind of in a little bit. Might as well be transparent and kind of share some of it. So what else kind of during startup time? Like what are some of the things that you were nervous about, and what are some of the things you're excited about?
Probably losing that weekly paycheck. That was probably the biggest leap
That's
for me to
scary.
get over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I know I'm actually conflicted on this. I am curious what you guys would say, because I get calls from people just asking like, hey, what would you do? And I get people saying, I'm working my job right now and I'm not sure if I should leave it yet. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, that's smart. But then I'm also thinking, such as myself or many other people who have made it in this industry, they did kind of just
go all
They
in.
took a
go
leap.
all in.
They took a leap.
So I don't know. I don't know what advice I would be. I mean, I guess
there's no
different.
one. Everyone's different, so there's no one right answer. So like we think about that too. That's something we podcasted and stuff and about in the past and spoke at RIAs, because a lot of real estate investors are part-time, and there's nothing wrong with that. They work a W-2, they do some deals on the side, and all in, it works out well. So there's nothing wrong with that. In addition, we also do hear frequently real estate investors with the W-2 who say that that's their dream is to go full time. If that's your dream, then work to make it happen, right? You're already actively doing deals, whatever. Like some people are passionate about their W-2 job as well, and they are into it. They like it. They want to keep it. It's their profession. And then over here, they're making money in real estate. Cool. But yeah, like I was saying, if it's someone's dream to like be full time in real estate, you can get there. You know?
Yeah. I'd like to ask the question why. Like, what do you want out of it? Oh, I can make more money. And I mean, anything full time takes time. The worst thing you could possibly do is give yourself a job. It's the worst possible thing. You create a business to give yourself a job, and then it's a job that you're unhappy with. Because a flipper that's flipping, the role of a flipper that flips 2 or 4 houses a year is 100% different than the role of a flipper who's flipping 10, 20, 30 houses a year. 100%. They're not involved in the day-to-day looks of the property and picking out this and going to Home Depot, and like they're managing teams, right? You know, so it's very, very, very different. I mean, it's different for us as we grew as a company. Before, when it was just Chris and myself, you know, hey, I'll take this role. Cool, you take this job. I don't want to do this. You don't want to do this. I'll take that. You know, like that's how it was. And then you grow and you build into it. Now, obviously, I like to think that when you start off, typically you do everything, and then you grow, and it's turns into a little bit of a headache. Like, and then you get bigger, and then you can offshoot that to the right people, and you take off the stuff you don't want out of your plate, and it turns out to be good. But the growing pains are tough, right, in their real life to do so. So I think real estate investors that like want to be doing this full time, they have the tolerance for risk. They understand what they're getting themselves into. They really love it, because if you don't love it, it's not going to work anyways. Then they should. You know, they should do it full time. And I do. If you're the right personality type, and you know that if you go all in, you'll be successful on something, I would say there's no better time to get started than right now. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But I think a lot of people say that, but they don't really mean it. I think they think they want to be full-time real estate investors, and then they realize like full-time real estate investors, like it's a big workload.
Yeah.
You got to be doing what you like. I mean, I know how everyone says like Gary Vee's crazy and like why would he want to work so much? He does it because he loves it, and that's what he wants to do.
Right.
If you love flipping houses and you love doing it, or being a hard money lender, or wholesaling properties, or owning rental properties, like if you love doing that, and you know you can see yourself and you dream about it, you daydream about it, absolutely, you should be doing that immediately. But I don't know if that's the case with everybody.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, especially when you're saying like if you like your day job, then you know why? What's your why?
Well, because they don't make enough money. So it's like, okay, well, then do one property a month, or you know, one property a year, and supplement. And I mean, one of the some of the most successful people, and I've shared the story a bunch. One of the most successful people that Chris and I know, they used to be private investors of ours that referred us from a friend. And both of them had government jobs that they liked. They made, you know, normal salaries. And ever since they were young, they started making money. They were investing in real estate. Then they invested in a note. Then they bought this. Then they bought that. They retired from the government, and they were worth tens of millions of dollars. They enjoyed what they were doing. They had their salaries going in on a regular basis, and they had these side deals over and over and over and over and over. They were one-man operations. They didn't have teams and staff. And guess what? They weren't reliant on buying deals in a speculative market like we're in today. You know, some people right now, like, they have to go buy deals no matter what. Like these folks, hey, well, you know what? We're gonna sideline for a few years because we're not sure what goes on. So they ended up being, you know, some of the most successful people that we ever talked to, and they had a huge net worth because they just did it as a side project, and that's okay.
Yeah, they worked full government careers, right? Yep. Like they retired with the pension and all that, and then we're doing the side stuff all along the way. I don't see too many like that, right? Like I'm sure there's folks out there like that, but those guys seemed unique to me. Some of the other like wealthy people who invest in a lot of different stuff, it more tends to seem like they do that sort of thing full time, run their businesses and their investments full time. But yeah, it happens that way as well. For sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of what you're saying, because you're saying they're a one-man team, and you're even saying before, when you start your business, you do things that maybe you consider painful at the time, whether it's just, let's just say marketing, right? Some people hate marketing. I think where a lot of people maybe stop or quit too soon is, and then they're like, let me outsource this. Let me hire somebody to go do this. Like they didn't push themselves far enough to either really know that part of the business or before they could afford it, right? So as soon as those people who have to buy a deal right now because they're trying to stay afloat, if they have any sort of overhead, they're going to be in trouble, right? So I think it's really key to run lean like those guys. Maybe they knew what they could afford. They knew fine. Just we can sit and wait because we're not paying somebody on the side. It's eating our paychecks, right? So. I think that's a big part of where people need to consider when they're doing this is that they're going to have to really, it's not just all fun and games as soon as you dive into a new business, right? You're going to have to do some things you don't like to do. It might happen.
Yeah, and it's not to, when we talk about this, like, it's not to scare people, but it's like, we were talking about this earlier. If you're successful at this, you're going to be successful at that. Mm-hmm. And if you're successful at that, you're going to be successful at that. Like, that's just what it is. So, like, if you want to do it, do it. But you gotta enjoy it. You gotta like it. It's not like, hey, I like this business venture. I should go all in and try it. It's like, do a deal. The best part about real estate investing compared to a lot of other business ventures is you can do it part-time and you can do it once or you can do it twice. You can do a lot. You can do a little. Like, you can do it by yourself. Like, that's the best part about it. It's not like all of a sudden it's like, hey, let me see if I want to buy a restaurant and see if I like that business. Mm-hmm. Well, you
can't try out one deal there. Yeah. You can't open a restaurant for like a weekend and see if you like it.
That's right. It doesn't like and it's very rare. It's very rare that there's a business venture that's like that besides investing in real estate.
That's very true.
So
that's a good point.
It's that's the beauty of it. What's one thing that as soon as you got off the ground running, you were like, cool, I'm in. We're going to do this. Like, what's one thing that Ian pounded in your head that you had to do, like, immediately? Like, no, like, this is what you need to do.
Well, I guess it depends what part of the business you're talking about. The business itself, marketing. Nothing comes before marketing, basically. In terms of hard money, you need to be underwriting very, very defensively, meaning you're looking at every deal as if you're the investor, right, as the underwriter. And do not overpay for this property, right? So it's all about buying at the right number. And people always ask me, like, what's your ARV, things like that. Sometimes I give it to them depending on how, are they asking me to learn or are they asking me to fight me on my number, right?
Yeah. 100%.
So, assuming they're trying to learn, I'll just say, hey, here's my comps, right? Here's where I'm at. And I'll ask them, like, what are you using? And they tell me this property a mile away. Right. And it's just like, I wouldn't be doing that.
Sure.
I wouldn't be doing that. So I think between those two things, the marketing, which is keeping the phone ringing, right? It's like the blood of your business. And the underwriting is making sure you're buying right is kind of the skeleton structure of the business. Right. So those are probably the two most important things I'd say with our business.
And Ian had you hitting the streets hard to do all inspections as well up front.
Yeah.
Because that's really how you learn.
Yeah,
which is one of the best ways to learn.
It's exactly what I was about to say. If you want to, I mean, I usually say, okay, wholesaling is a great way to learn the bit because it'll get you through a whole transaction. But if you want to learn a flip and how it's done from start to finish, go to any lender that's out there and just say, hey, do you mind if I do your inspections?
Yeah.
Right, and you're going to learn so much just from seeing.
How many inspections did you do your first year?
So this
when you started, kind of.
Yeah. So the first year, this includes when a deal comes in, you get the initial view of the house, and then also during the project, your clients will request draws. So probably about 400 to 500.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah,
that's what I wanted to hear.
And that's about 8 hours on the road.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, and that's part of starting a business. Like, you have to be able to put things aside. Like, I wasn't able to watch TV and movies and sports and do all these things that I dream about doing or that I can do now, but I knew starting, like, I'm going to go have to sit in a car for 8 hours a couple times a week. Like, and I know you've done it yourself.
Yeah, so mobile offices for the first few years. Like,
yeah.
You got to learn the areas. And this isn't just a hard money lender. This can be any real estate investor in general. This could be if you're buying rentals, if you're buying flips, if you're a wholesaler. Like, you need to learn the areas. You need, even if you grew up in the area,
Mm-hmm.
like you need to really learn the areas. Like, what's every freaking house on this block cost? What are the values? What's the average construction cost? You know, if in this subdivision, if there's 300 houses, how many styles are they? You know, what's the difference between a 3-bedroom and a 4-bedroom and a 5-bedroom with a built-out basement, not a built-out basement? You just learn it, right? Like, that's part of it. It goes a long way. It's not just important to know for your own due diligence, but also, you know, we're marketing for deals on a regular basis, and we're trying to find opportunities, and we're talking to people, and you need to be educated. People are not going to take you serious. A seller is not going to sell you a house if they don't think you're serious and you're educated. You're not going to do a loan for somebody if you're a hard money lender and they don't think you know what you're talking about, and vice versa. You're not going to sell a property to an experienced real estate investor if you're a wholesaler if you give them false numbers. Like, it doesn't matter what side of the business are. Like, you have to be educated on it. And, you're in your car driving, you're doing your phone calls, you're going to the properties, you're checking them out, you're meeting contractors, you're meeting the borrowers, you're meeting everybody. You're meeting the real estate investors, you're meeting other real estate agents. Like, the more people you know, the better. I mean, we're huge advocates of only buy, lend, invest locally in areas that you know. I don't know anything about California. I'm not lending in California. We're not buying properties in California. We know localized markets, and that's how you learned it. And I mean, you only really do stuff in New Jersey, and someone would be like, well, why not do stuff elsewhere? It's like,
why not New York? I get that all the time.
So I'm learning. I know New Jersey, and I believe that almost every market is a big enough footprint for everybody. There's arguments on that. There's some areas of the country that might not be, but like most mid-Atlantic areas are big enough footprints that there's enough deals there. The people that typically I hear say that aren't getting 1,000 leads a month.
Exactly.
Right?
They're getting 10 phone calls and say, this doesn't work, right?
Yeah, that's
it's
right.
No, the different part of your business doesn't work before you can make that statement. But yeah, I mean, I think it's really important to be local. I think that's the advantage we offer. I can do loans in Irvington that some lenders from California won't touch because I know there's parts of Irvington I'm totally comfortable being in, right?
Yeah.
And that's a street to street, block to block type
right.
thing. And you get that by literally driving. Seeing what's going on in a street, and you just do that for years.
So most institutional backed lenders won't mess with Baltimore at all. I remember that from the mortgage days back in the day. They wouldn't want to mess with Baltimore City whatsoever. It was in the city, rate bumps or whatever, because they had higher default rates there. And I get it, right? It's
reason too, like the block to block thing, right?
Yeah, the block to block thing. So, and we only lend in certain areas as well. Like, I'm not lending in the whole city, but I'm lending in certain areas because I know the areas and we've been in those areas. And I've seen the developments of what happened in the early 2000s, what happened, in 2008, what happened in, after 2008 and where it rebounded. Like, where's these properties going? I know you'll send me some opportunities locally in our territory, out of your territory that's in Baltimore. And be like, are you sure? Like, they say the ARV is 300. And I'm like, that ARV maybe is 300 for the next, for a year. But like, those things were $50,000 a few years ago. And yes, because there's a lot of liquidity in the marketplace and out-of-towners have come in and deployed capital in some of these markets, that there's more demand because they can get financing for them. But a lot of those areas are not great neighborhoods because it's localized. We know that, and you know that.
That's a very timely topic, I think, right now because, that concern is during times like this. The Fed's going up, and that impacts the market. I know everyone says that's not directly related. Well, indirectly, all money is going to move in a certain direction.
100%.
It's all connected indirectly.
Yeah. So areas that we saw boom in the last 5 years, like you said, it's like, well, let's see what happens as this market shifts because maybe it's fine, maybe it is, but I'm not willing to risk my money on that, right? And I think other investors should have similar thoughts to that before they want to take that risk, but. Being the local lender and knowing those types of moves on a market, I don't know if you guys are seeing this down here, but a lot of new construction is actually stopping in these cities, right? So
is that right?
Yeah, which is
like development's underway.
Yeah. Well, no. If it's underway, it's still good. But I'm saying the expansion and things like that, because I see a lot of gentrification, things like that. Programs are like being halted right now.
I haven't seen that quite yet around here. Have you?
No.
Yeah, I know a couple like big, like corporate. Or what do you call that kind of builder?
Track builder.
Track builder. production builder. That's kind of what I was looking for. The big companies doing stuff. I know a couple of those folks, and they haven't mentioned that yet. But that's interesting.
Yeah. So I mean, it's, I guess, part of the local markets. We're always comparing our markets. Like what's going on in Baltimore is usually somewhat similar to parts of Philadelphia, which is usually somewhat similar to Newark. Then you have your suburb areas. But yeah, that's what we're seeing a little bit on the new construction. So.
That's interesting too.
It's just something to
and
watch,
that's like,
right? Like, how's that going to shift things?
Hard to say. I mean, you couldn't have predicted any of this stuff. Any of the stuff that happened in the real estate and financial worlds during a pandemic, like, could not have been predicted. It's just completely, ass backwards, like nonsensical. So, yeah, we're not really too huge into predicting because that exact reason. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's very interesting to watch the different factors that go into these changes. Like, okay, that could be, on one hand, related to the cost of capital, and that's more expensive now, and people are like, I'm going to pause like our production, our building. But then on the other side, we still know that we have a shortage of housing supply. Mm-hmm. So maybe we do need those houses being built by these people. Like where does it shake out?
Yeah, I mean, we just had somebody on our podcast saying there's like a physical space limit in Philadelphia that's causing, like, people want to build, but they're not finding the land at the right price and the contracts.
The infill type stuff.
Yeah.
Urban infill.
So, that's, which is interesting because, between COVID and the exodus out of cities, are people trying to fill back in already? So there's almost mixed reports from realtors saying, people are leaving the city forever, and you have other realtors that are being like, we can't stop people coming in right
like
now.
New York, it was like an exodus, and then prices dropped, and then now everyone's moving back and they're going back up, and it's like, it's wild.
Yeah, I mean, here's the other beauty about investing in real estate. We all take the knowledge that we have in the past and we utilize that moving forward. So you look at a deal, and maybe we quoted a loan of $100,000 yesterday. Maybe a real estate investor went to a distressed seller and said, I'll give you $100,000 for this house. Well, that was yesterday. Today, we have today's knowledge. Mm-hmm. And maybe they offer to buy it for 90. Maybe we offer to do a loan only for 90,000 instead of 100. Maybe it's 110. Like, we take the information that we have today and we make a good bet on it, right? It's kind of like dollar cost averaging on some of these things, right? So there's loans that we have in our books on the same block with lots of different numbers, right? Hey, we lent them 80, we lent them 100, we lent them 60, we lent them 150. And that's somewhat of the beauty of investing in real estate by doing so. I know a lot of real estate investors that own a lot of rental properties in similar markets, similar neighborhoods, and some they bought for here, some they bought for here, some they bought here, some they bought there. So it's like my crypto portfolio.
Yeah,
it's like my Bitcoin portfolio.
How far back in time do you go for your comps, Jeff?
I mean, as soon as possible, as quick as possible. Shorter the better. I have my default set for about 180 days, but it's never that long. I mean, I don't typically go that long. I mean, I try to do like 90 days, give or take, but it depends on the situation, right? And it depends on the deal. I mean, we all know that, I don't want to say best, the easiest deals to buy, comp, renovate are typically suburban single families and townhouses where there's a big sample size, a decent sized subdivision with a few different houses to pull from. They're very easy. On the underwriting side. Yeah. Well, and also on the home buying side, so you know what the house is worth,
just more
what
predictable.
It's going to sell for.
More predictable, yeah.
The hard ones are that old white Cape Cod that sits on the side of the road on a double yellow line outside a subdivision, right? Mm-hmm. Those are the hardest ones to do. And those are in every town across the country. Are they worth the same as in the subdivision? Maybe, maybe not. Do they go to the same school system? That thing was built in 1930. Your subdivision was built in 1990, right? But with upgrades, could it be the same? Maybe, maybe not. Some people want to be on a double yellow line and outside of a neighborhood because they have more land and privacy. Some people want to be on top of their neighbors, right? There's so many factors that in place. I actually think that on the lending side of it, it's actually a little bit easier because the real estate investor bears the majority of the risk. The lender bears less risk on that, and you can always be a little bit more conservative. But typically, those oddball deals, as a real estate investor, usually, if they're executed right, usually can make a lot more money, right? They're beat up, they're older, more people are scared to jump in on them, so you can make more money by buying those deals. But to answer your question related to the comp stuff, quick, the closest and
well, I guess with the shifting market right now, at least we're calling it a shifting market. I know not everyone agrees yet. Has your comping changed at all?
Not really. I just take it in consideration that an ARV today is going to be different than an ARV tomorrow. And good, on a lending side, good clients, meaning good borrowers that have experience, that have good credit, that we feel comfortable that they have the capacity and can execute and have the cash backing, meaning they have like reserves, they have down payments, the larger the down payment, the better, will typically execute. They'll figure out a way to make that deal work. And they will. In my opinion, what will happen in a market like this, and we were at a mastermind group about 2 weeks ago. We were one of the speakers. There was a lot of different speakers from all over the country. And another guy said this exact same thing, and I 100% agree with it, that 80% of the real estate investors, real estate agents, mortgage brokers, lenders, everything will probably get fizzed out in a changing market. They just will. That's just kind of what it is.
It's a large number. 80%.
It is a large number.
80% is a very large number.
A lot of people will kind of just fizzle out. And then 20% will capture all the market share, right? Because
that 20% already does 80% of it anyway.
That's right. So they'll capture the majority of the market share anyways, and they'll be able to execute on it. There's always a good time to buy, sell, trade, lend, no matter where. It doesn't matter if the market's at the top. There's still a number that makes sense.
Oh, there's a lot of investors out there that are looking for a dip because they want to buy better, right? They want to buy with less competition at better numbers, turn out their product, whether they're holding or selling, either way. But they're looking forward to better buy prices. A lot of people want that dip.
But guess what? The successful guys that know what they're doing, that are in it, that are doing marketing, that have a team, that have systems, they have a real business in place, they can buy a property at the tippy top of the market. I'm not saying they're paying the tippy top price, but they can buy at the tip top of the market. They still have deals right now, tip top of the market. I see the deals because we're lending on them. They're still freaking really good deals where you scratch your head and be like, how did this guy get this deal? Right? Well, I'll tell you where he didn't get it. He didn't get it by hopping on MLS for 10 minutes and be like, hey, I want to go buy a property in this zip code. He didn't get it off MLS. I promise you that. He got it because, he was networking. He knew, he worked it. He worked deals to get it. Like that's how the business works.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was actually, I guess to loop it back all to our beginning conversation is changing from I'm getting a paycheck every 2 weeks to the work you're doing today may not pay off for another year or two is like, it's a crazy concept. Like you can understand it, but then to experience it, it takes time.
I like how you brought this back around. Let's talk about this again.
All the way back.
I like that. So it does take time, and these things do grow, and they grow slowly, and it requires patience. And you've seen the stuff like the inputs that you insert into building the machine and how it comes back around later. And it does take time. And it all of it in this business snowballs. Our database of people who know us and people who are calling us, the people we've actually done business with before, right? Like the more people we lend to, the more people are coming back, right? The whole thing, like search rankings, snowball, our own lender accounts, because obviously we lend alongside our capital investors. It all snowballs. And that's one of the great things about this business. And it is, everyone wants it to happen quickly, right? Everyone wants it to happen overnight. It doesn't, at least not for us. And it's still enjoyable to watch it come to fruition later, right? Because these are tangible things inside of our business. So you can see, like, a database of X amount of people, X amount of closed deals from past people, X amount outstanding in the portfolio. Like, these are all tangible, like, real numbers and things that we can see. And watching it get bigger and bigger slowly over time is, to me, a very rewarding thing. And to think about the future too, right? Like, tack another 10 years onto what we've done. What's that going to look like? It's exciting and motivating to me for sure.
Dude, I think if everything happened too quickly, it would just be a big slap in the face, and you get punched in your teeth a few years later when things collapse. Like we've always said, Chris and I have never really had huge hits over the years, but we've had a lot of base hits. Over
a lot
and over
of singles
and
and doubles.
A lot of singles over and like ours is like this, kind of like Warren Buffett's. Hey, remember Warren Buffett didn't really freaking kill it until he was in his 50s.
Until he's an old man.
Like, but that's how
even after that.
That's how the snowball works.
Mm-hmm.
Like, go get if you don't have this on your phone yet, like get a compound interest calculator and freaking hawk it and stare it and put different things in place. Like
every day, look at that.
Oh, I play with
me
it
too.
like it's a freaking video game.
Yeah. Exactly. Like that is the beauty of it. But like slow and steady wins the race. What I don't want to happen is go like this and then go like that, because that's the cycle. That's what will happen if you do that.
I think there's a lot of people that may be experiencing that.
A lot of people are experiencing it, and they're going to continue to, and I get nervous for that, especially the folks that have been in this business for less than 10 or 12 years, any real estate business, because they've only seen things go up.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, that worked out, let's do it again. Oh, that worked out, let's do it again. Oh, that works out. And then all of a sudden you get freaking literally punched in your face, and all of that hard work is gone. Just like that. And like, I hate to say that, but like that's reality. Like that stuff happens, and it will happen unless you have a good foundation. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, you know, if you got some really good buys and you've learned from it, that's fine. But a lot of people haven't learned from it, right? I saw this thing. Somebody posted something on social that I liked a lot recently about a few different people, a few different types, and a lot of the people are like, hey, they jump into this business, they flip a house, they make a lot of money, they flip another house, make another money, and then they're like, oh, this is easy, and you know, they think that that's reality. They think that's going to happen, and they buy a big house and they buy a big car, and they're like, oh, I need to flip more houses, and they do more and more and more, and the market. Listen, anyone who flipped a house that it sold for more than your estimate. It did over the last 5 years. Every time it sold for more than it should have sold for, or not should have sold for, but like more than you expected to sell for. And everyone's like, oh well, you know, the real estate market's never going to collapse. The DC market's never going to collapse. That's what they say in the DC area. Well, DC got hit hard in 2008. Did it bounce back bigger than before? Yeah, absolutely. But those assets turn into liabilities like that. Mm-hmm. Your assets will turn into a liability if you can't cover your debt service, or if you're in the middle of a project. Like, you got to be smart about it. Now, that's not to scare people not to do deals, but you got to be realistic on some of these things. So I'm glad that, you know, you didn't just hop into this business and all of a sudden start doing tons of deals. Because number one, that doesn't work. No, that doesn't really work in life. Right? If it does, you know, that you just jump into something and you just be ultra successful, you know, just like that. And if you are, you kind of have to have a wake-up call to be like, hey, is this reality? Is this always going to be like this? What am I doing? I mean, think about it. Think about the conversations we've had recently, because we've had some decent-sized deals in volume, and we're like, hey, the thing that comes to our mind is, hey, am I underwriting too aggressively? Like, that's the first thing that comes to my mind. If I close too many loans in 1 week, I'm like, shit, I need to I need to hunker down a little bit and be more conservative. Even if my loans are 50 LTVs, because that tells you something. If you're a wholesaler and you're wholesaling too many properties at one time, or, you know, you buy too many properties at one time, like, maybe you should, I don't know. I'm ranting on this subject, but I think you know kind of where we're at.
I mean, I think to a certain degree, I probably could have done more business my first maybe 2 years, but they would have been it would have been like rolling the dice more than a smart business investment, because it might have gone up, and if you did in the last 5 years, if you've been rolling the dice anytime in the last 5 years,
you were good.
You won.
until you're not.
You could roll snake eyes and you still would have won somehow.
Let me ask you this question: if you went down by 1 point and 1% on your interest rate, and you went up by 5 to 10% LTV, not a ton in either direction. One might think to the naked eye it's not a ton. How many more deals could you do?
At least double.
Exactly.
At least double.
100%. Me too.
Yeah.
A
Me
10
too.
LTV adjustment? Yeah.
At least.
I'm being conservative on that.
But guess what? Like, I want to relate this more to flippers than to lenders, but you'll get the point. Like, let's say you have, like, how many? Let's say you have one really bad flip. How many good deals does that wipe out?
10.
Exactly. That's the number I was going to say.
Yeah.
Exactly like a hard money loan.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and guess what? You have so many headaches. It's you lose 10 times as much money. You have 10 times as much headaches. You have potentially 10 times lawsuits because you got your capital investors or your lenders or your banks suing you. Like, it's just not worth doing it.
Unless you're the lawyer, then you're really happy with that client. But that's one bad deal, right?
Yeah, that's one bad deal.
Happy you have two.
Exactly. Now, exactly. Now, what happens? What happens when? Keep in mind, when you start having a bad deal because something in the market, dominoes. So,
yep.
I think all of us are pretty strong, ingrained in our heads. Like, we got to be conservative.
Mm-hmm.
We got to be conservative on stuff because it's not worth doing it. Rather make less money and grow a business by the foundation the right way, and it grows.
I mean, I haven't been in it as long as you guys have, but in my roughly 6 years, you just see those people pop up, get real loud, and then they're gone.
That's right, 100%.
So it's just this game's all about just surviving, right? If you're here, you will make money. So you just got to put yourself in the position to be here tomorrow.
And there are assets. Do it the right way. It grows over time. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, those $250 that we talked about earlier, those $250 a month passive rental property checks are a little bit more sexy than that $30,000 one-time hit that disappeared. Do it both. We're all, you got to have different buckets of stuff. You got to go out there, take some risks, do some flips, make some high fees, have some, less deals like a wholesale deal, make a little bit less money and then have your rental portfolio. The real estate investors, I'm excited to see who's been in this business for the last 10 years or less and who comes out on top after the market shakes up, because those are the winners, right? Like, those are the ones that are they did it the right way. They made money through flips. They made money through wholesales. They have rental income. They have real assets. When the day comes that they can't flip a property because there's no properties to flip right now, maybe they don't have the opportunity to find a deal. Well, guess what? Now they have passive cash flow coming in.
I think what's a pretty big difference between possibly this shift and 2008 is 2008, unless you were in the business, such as yourselves, you weren't going to be privy to all of this. But now with social media and everything on the internet, it's like a recording of like who's going to be. We're going to be able to look back and be like, okay, this person did that person did this. This is what they did. Because unless you were there in 2008,
that's an interesting point.
Just don't know.
And we were there in 2008. It was actually, during this conversation, I was thinking that it was an interesting time to start because we saw a huge downturn, a crash, in essence, of a bunch of different stuff within the first 5 years of our career. Like, that doesn't always happen.
Yeah. And it was beneficial to us.
Yeah.
Like, we're like, yo, this shit's real.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. This shit is, once you see that, this shit is real.
And we didn't know when HMB started that we were at the bottom either. Like, we didn't know what part.
We didn't know what the bottom was, but it went down fast. We knew, and it didn't last all that long. Like, things turned around, within a couple of years, and then started slowly creeping back up. But yeah, no, that's an interesting point that a lot of the stuff is going to be documented for
the next gen.
For the next gen. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. This year's going to be interesting. This year and next, we could see some stuff. We have seen stuff shake up. Just starting with interest rates. We have seen stuff shake up, and where it goes, we don't know. But it'll be very, very interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean the unknown. And again, when we were at this mastermind group recently, we asked everybody was on the exact same page. There's still just no supply, and a lot of demand for housing. Even if interest rates are up by 200 basis points, even if the affordability is down a lot, based on what somebody could afford in January compared to what they can afford in May, is down 20%. So that's the unknown. Mm-hmm. That's the weird thing. But bank interest rates I'm guessing are gonna continue to go up. We know for a fact that their guidelines are more strict than they were. So, go into that knowing that. I mean, I truly believe people should still be flipping houses, wholesaling, buying rentals, doing loans.
Yeah, always.
Absolutely.
Always.
No matter what. But it's got to be the right deal. You got to take all that stuff into consideration.
Mm-hmm.
You know, before, if somebody asked that question, it's like, hey, if the market dipped by 10% in the next 4 months, would you still make money? And it's like, nah, man, I only have like a 5% margin on this. It's like, that is a disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah, that's only a matter of time. Exactly.
What do you think? Number one, if you had to kind of start, let's say you were starting a different business in general, any business in general, and you had to like hit the ground floor running, like what's the first thing that you would, one of the most important things, first thing that you would do to hop in to kind of get going, besides education and stuff like that? Because obviously you got to be learning and educating yourself and surrounding yourself with the right people all over the all
so
the time.
Excluding surrounding yourself with the right people, then,
Yeah.
because that would actually be my
that's number one. But besides that, like, you're going to learn from the best first, but then after that, like, what's something that you're going to just freaking get gritty on every day?
Probably marketing.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the answer you're looking for, but I mean,
That's my answer.
You can give me any product. Like, the product doesn't even have to exist yet.
Yep.
And it's like, all right, where are we on
Go
the
find
marketing?
freaking deals.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Go find customers. Go find
Exactly.
investors. Go
Find somebody
clients.
who's going to buy it. Get feedback on, like. In fact, I've done that for my other businesses. So initially, I built out an entire website. Had this whole thing, and then I marketed it, and nothing happened.
That's what everybody does.
That's what everybody does, because it's exciting to build and create, and I get
Yeah.
that. But if you're trying to, that's a hobby. That's a hobby, right?
Mm-hmm.
Different than a business. A business, get your marketing going first before anything.
Everybody is terrified of, how am I going to fulfill, or what's going to happen there, or, well, I can't handle all these requests. I don't have any staff, or what do I need to do this? You might not know this story. The first loan that we ever closed wasn't under Hard Money Banker's name. It was under Caballero Properties' name, because that was the home buying company that we had at the time, and we used that check and we started Hard Money Bankers with that. After we did a loan first. We did a full freaking loan first. We went out, we marketed, we said we were a company. We might have had the website already.
There was a website. There's no business entity.
Yeah, there was no business entity. We closed our first loan and we're like, we're in business. Let's freaking go.
That's the proper order.
That's the proper order to do. And then again, like, that might have been, intuitively, I don't know.
I've seen info marketers tell stories about how they marketed a course or a product or something like that, and they hadn't written it yet. If people buy it, I will write exactly what I said I was going to.
Yeah.
But if they don't, I'll just refund their money and move on.
Yep.
Right? I don't want to write it yet until I know that people want it.
Yep.
Like the product market fit. If it's there, happy to create the course.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with going to find deals before you find capital. Everyone thinks it's the opposite. Hard money, let's say like I'm a new hard money lender, then be like, oh, I need to go find who's going to fund this deal first. Or if I'm a flipper, I'll be like, well, how am I going to go find a deal? I don't have the money to buy it. Right? Like,
Yep.
Surprisingly enough, it works the opposite.
Money's secondary.
And listen,
to
is it
that.
going to be uncomfortable?
Well, you need the deal to get the money.
That's right.
Yep.
Is it going to
But
be
it's scary to get the deal.
Hell yeah.
You get everything if you get the deal.
Yeah.
You get
Deals-
people helping
Yes.
you. You get
Yes.
the contract.
Yeah.
You get everything
That-
you want if you find the deal.
A good deal. The right deal. Exactly.
No, if you find a good deal, yes, as long as you're not a complete schmo.
Yeah.
Um,
And you know how uncomfortable that is? Well, we've all been through it. It's super uncomfortable.
That's scary.
But you have to do it. We've all done it. That's because you're not going to do it the other way around. Doesn't work the other way around.
Those early days were sketchy because Jay's throwing deals in the pipeline. I'm simultaneously, raising capital from like the limited contacts we have. He's throwing deals with closing dates in the pipeline. I'm like, all right, but we hit them all. We hit them all with some sleepless nights for sure. But hey,
I mean,
that's startup time.
I think that's a huge takeaway.
That's startup time,
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
It should be.
Like, you sold a product before having a product, essentially. But it's easier to figger out from there, because you're very motivated to put those sleepless nights in. And I don't know if we want to go here with the topic, but I think the universe helps you out in some ways when you're super focused and things are going to drop in front of you that you wouldn't have seen before, right? Before you knew you needed it, right? So I think that's partly why it connects like that.
I got one other way to end. That's the opposite of what we just kind of were mentioning. We can end with this, and then you can tell everybody how they can find you and list your podcast. But one other thing that's interesting is the opposite of what we were just talking about was having too much capital. So how many deals did you do your first year in business?
Just me directly?
Yeah, just you.
I want to say it's between 20 and 30.
That was a lot. You did 20 or 30 deals our first year in business together?
That's what I thought.
Okay, maybe. Okay.
Let's go 20.
I think that's right. We did 16 our first year, but our first year and your first year was very different because we didn't have we barely had gavel for that.
Right.
The point is this: even if you have unlimited capital, that doesn't mean that all of a sudden you can just do unlimited deals to do so. Ryan had unlimited capital backing. We always have more capital than we have deals. That's just the way it works, right? We've always had more capital over the last 6, 7, 10 years. We've always had more capital than deals because every day a new loan closes, a new loan pays off, right? So point being that Ryan had, he might not have known this, but in essence he had unlimited capital backing and he still only did a certain amount of deals. And, he fought every day to try to get new leads, new deals. Point being that even if you have tons and tons and tons and tons of capital, that's only one side of the business. You still need deal flow, good deal flow, great deal flow over and over and over. So it's having good deal flow. Everything else kind of flows down into
regardless of whether it's real estate or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a flipper and let's say you partner with a private investor that says, "Hey, I'm going to be your unlimited capital backing." If you're doing too many deals, there's only so many deals that you can do. You're a one-person flipper, right? And you have unlimited capital backing. You can't do 30 deals as a one-person flipper your first year. You're going to fail. We could have made you fail. We could have been like, hey, get to 50 deals. And we could have done bad deals. That would have been a recipe for disaster. So you got to do it the responsible way. It's fun. All right, guys.
See you
Until next time.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Private Lenders Podcast. Please note that the opinions stated by all the speakers on this show are only opinions and not legal, financial, or accounting advice. Please make sure to always check with your own legal, accounting, and financial professionals. If you'd enjoyed this episode of the Private Lenders Podcast, we'd appreciate it if you spread the word. Make sure to check out hardmoneymastermind.com, the #1 free community for new and experienced private and hard money lenders.